Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're all about the positivity here on the show. And with me today, I've got a very special guest. He has over 40 plus years of experience in professional wrestling. I'm talking about a referee, a trainer, an author, a booker, and he's done so much. He's been inducted to several Hall of Fames and was one of the stars of the movie The Iron Claw that just recently came out. I'm pleased to welcome the one and only James Beard. James, welcome to Wrestling with Heart.
Good to be with you, Stan.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So, tell me about your childhood. Where are you from?
Well, I'm a Texas boy. I was born and raised in East Texas, around the Tyler area. That's pretty much where I grew up. I went to school all the way through here, and then of course when I graduated, I ended up in Fort Worth one year, and then I ended up in North Texas, North Texas State, many moons ago. But so I've been a Texas boy most of my life. I've lived in Tennessee for a little while. Of course, I was overseas a good bit, but I'm a Texan. I'm back home.
Yeah, I mean, it's they say everything's bigger and better in Texas. I mean, it's a huge state.
Well, that's true. It is.
Well, Texas is such a hotbed of wrestling, as well as other parts of the South. But, one of the common themes of our conversation today is talking about Texas wrestling, specifically the Dallas area where the Von Erichs grew up and they're from. And I know you were in the Iron Claw, which was such it was a colossal success, a huge success in the box office. Was one of the biggest movies that came out in 2023. And what got you interested in professional wrestling? I guess we'll start with that.
Oh gosh, I started watching wrestling when I was just a kid. Just a little bitty boy. We were about 90 miles east of Dallas, and we didn't have cable. We had an antenna, and sometimes you could pick up the Dallas stations pretty well, and sometimes it wasn't so great. But on Saturdays, if we could get it, we watched wrestling out of. Back then, it was out of the Northside Coliseum, and also they had a studio program in Dallas, and then later on, of course, they started doing the taping at the Sportatorium too. So, and Will Rogers, and so. But I watched from the time I was just a kid on old black and white television, and then my folks took me to the Sportatorium a couple of times when I was, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old, something like that, and that was the first time I ever saw it live, and that changed everything for me. The seeing it in color and live, and it just a whole. I tell people all the time, if you're not a wrestling fan, if you ever go to a live show, it'll change the way you perceive it for sure. And it obviously did that with me, and it was just something that kind of stuck with me for the rest of my life. I was a fan, and then I kind of got pushed into the business, and once I got into it, it's become my life, really. I've been playing music for several years, so I was a little bit older when I got into it, and I was an athlete. I played basketball and baseball in college, and it wasn't the athletic part of it. I think I could have probably handled okay. It was just one of those things that it was a little too late for me to try to start something at that point. Or at least that's how I felt about it. And really, when I got into it, my goal was to get on and involved in the business side, the creative side, and that's something that I worked toward from the time I got into the business. So I wasn't really trying to be a wrestling star. I didn't have that goal in mind. But I just wanted to be someone who could use this, and that's fortunately I've had those opportunities. That's been good to me.
Do you remember the first time you started writing for a particular wrestling company?
Well, in those days you didn't write. You did what we call booking, and a lot of times that wasn't even written down. It was just all here. You might make notes and that kind of thing, but uh, we booking and writing are two different things to me. And the writing has really kind of taken away some of the spontaneity, I think, and some of the creativity that that made wrestling so appealing to me, because there are certain things that the writers do these days that don't make a lot of sense wrestling wise or competitive wise. It's more trying to, I don't know. It's more like a variety show than it is a wrestling show now. So there's a big difference. I do remember when I first was able to contribute to developing matches and coming up with finishes and that kind of thing, and that really started in Japan for me. But and that was something I wanted to do and something I've always enjoyed doing and still do to this day.
What were some of your favorite matches, or what have been, since you still are doing it, what have been some of your favorite matches to
My my
referee?
favorite matches are always the ones that are technically nice, technically well developed, and the psychology means something. It's not always the main events, not always the high dollar matches. I was very fortunate that pretty early on I was able to kind of determine which matches I wanted to work, and the ones that I didn't want to work. And a lot of times they wanted me to be in the main events anyway. But anytime I got to work with the technicians, those were the times when I enjoyed it the most. And sometimes it wasn't always the feature matches. It was but I've been in so many thousands and thousands, and some of them are very memorable. Some of them, when people ask me those questions, it's hard to say, oh, this match was my favorite or that one. There were some in Japan that were just incredible that I enjoyed. And then there's some over here working with the great workers, the guys that really understood how to develop matches. That was my joy.
Yeah, I mean, you've been a part of several iconic matches over the years, working with so many legends, and I got to see the Iron Claw that you were a part of, and that had to have been a fun experience. The
Incredible,
story, yeah,
incredible.
the story that they were telling with the Von Erichs, man, it was just so tragic, but also uplifting when you see um, Kevin Von Erich really kind of come into his own and be with his family and proud of the legacy that he helped build, and
And that's the thing I try to tell people, that so many wrestling fans, even before the movie was out, the rumors were out there about this and that, and the cast was announced and all of that. People started criticizing this and criticizing that. I try to tell people, listen, this is a movie. It's not a documentary. It's a movie based on fact and on true stories, but it's still a movie, and it's 2 hours and so many minutes long, and you're not going to be able to get every detail in that and develop every character and that was involved in world class and the Von Erich family in a little over 2 hours. It's just not going to happen.
it's
And
impossible.
yeah, it's impossible to do that. And the truth is this story in particular is about Kevin, and it's a business which is unique in itself just because of what it is. And a father who was a dominant person in that business and very well known, one of the biggest draws in the business over a couple of decades. And it's about Kevin's story about coming into it and dealing with that, and also dealing with the fact that he's the older brother left, and David, really was the first one to get the big break. They were pushing him to be a world champion. And then when David died, it kind of skipped over Kevin again, went to Kerry. And so he was dealing with that as well, but because, you would think the older brother is going to be the guy that's going to be the next in line, but that's not how it worked. and I'm sure there were a lot of, well, I know there were a lot of psychological things going on there with Kevin, that dealing with that situation, and then he dealt with it well. But that's what the movie's about. That, and then of course all the tragedies, and dealing with all of that, and also dealing with developing a relationship with Pam, and building a family, which none of that stuff was fully developed because it couldn't be. There's not enough time.
No.
And a lot of things were changed. I mean, there's some timelines in the movie that aren't the way it happened, and a couple of things that the movie showed happening didn't happen exactly that way. But it was done that way in order to be able to tell Kevin's story, and that's what it's about. And I try to tell people, if you will go to see the movie, go to see it from that point of view, and don't try to nitpick it for not being a documentary.
Did you feel like the movie stayed true to the Von Erich story?
It did in a lot of respects. It did in the fact that I know how close all those brothers were, and they really loved each other. That family is close, and that, I think that was the big point. Kevin told Sean Durkin at some point, after Sean had already written the script and then started working on it and that kind of thing, he did talk to Kevin, and Kevin told him, the main thing I want to see is that the relationship with my brothers is the real thing, and I think Sean made a real effort of trying to show that those guys really loved each other, and they did. That's exactly how they were, and they were a close-knit family. All of them were, and it kind of fell apart, of course, with all the tragedies, and then later Doris leaving, Fritz and Doris getting a divorce and that kind of thing. That's another tragedy, that really didn't show up in the movie, but it's part of the family story, but yeah, I think that was very true to real life. There were other people involved in the family. I mean, Kevin had 2 girls before he had those 2 boys. They weren't even in the movie, which they understand why. They were told why, and they understand that just one of those things the story had to be told this way. David was married at one time and had a child, and that child passed away like 2 or 3 months old. That wasn't in there either. And it would have been that time. You're talking about running down a bunch of rat holes there that you just can't get into in a 2-hour movie. Carrie had 2 girls, and knew them both well, and still do, and that wasn't part of the story. But that's just, that's what you have to do when you make a movie. But the family dynamic, I think, was very, very honest in the movie, and I think it told that story that they were close, they loved each other, the struggles in the business, trying to come into it as a young guy and taking your lumps and learning, like the match with Harley, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That was very, very realistic. A lot of experienced guys that were around during those days. They would take advantage of young guys like that, and especially guys they knew were going to be kind of pushed along pretty soon. But at the same time, a lot of those guys loved working with the Von Erich boys because they knew that's where the money was going to be. So, there were a lot of things in the wrestling side of the story that was very real too, and we tried to make the wrestling scenes as realistic as possible, and I think we did. I think we nailed it on that. Chavo Guerrero was incredible in putting those together,
for sure.
And we, he allowed me to help, as far as telling these guys that this guy would do this way and this guy would do this that way. But, the guys that I'd worked with in the ring, I knew them, and I think we got it right on the wrestling part. So yeah, the movie had a lot of accuracy in that regard. As long as you don't try to make it historically perfect, and I think he nailed all the main things anyway.
And the cast seemed like they were having fun too. They really got into it.
They were all incredible to work with. And I didn't get to work with all the cast because uh, the a lot of the family scenes and stuff, like with Kevin and Pam and with Doris and that kind of thing, we were involved in. We were involved in the things that had to do with wrestling, but all those guys that were involved in that were just incredible to work with, and none of them had that star attitude at all. They were all very willing to listen and do what we had asked them to do, or at least showed them how to do, and that kind of thing. And they did all the wrestling scenes. I mean, we had guys that were showing them how to do these things. And of course, Chavo had worked with them for several months before and taught them some basic things. But when it came down to shooting the actual scenes you see in the movie, those were the actors doing them, and they did them all the way through. It was pretty impressive, actually, to see how well they did them.
Yeah, Chavo did an incredible job teaching
Yes, he
those
did.
guys
Yeah.
how to wrestle. So
Yeah, had a ball working with Chavo because I've known his family forever, and I had worked with Chavo Jr. 2 or 3 times before that in the past too, in other situations, not movie wise, and just wrestling. But we had a really good relationship, good time working there with he and Hiro Koda, who was the stunt director and a very well known one in Hollywood. Won several awards, but he with the three of us we got pretty tight during the movie and enjoyed it. We had our own little after party after it was all over with, and kind of,
yeah,
it was just a good experience. It really was.
yeah, it seems like it was too. I hope this leads to more wrestling biopics being made, because there's a lot of stories out there that I feel like deserve to be told.
I've heard rumors that there's already been a couple of them greenlighted, and I'm not surprised. When they saw how successful this one was, I think that's it's kind of like monkey see monkey do in the entertainment business, and
Yeah,
that's what usually happens. And hopefully some of them will be just as good and just as well done as this movie was.
yeah. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Well, let's switch gears now and talk about some of the stuff you've done outside of the ring. I know you've been involved with a lot of charity organizations, done a lot of charity work, and helped out in your community. Tell me about some of the organizations that you partnered up with over the years.
Well, I don't necessarily get involved with organizations so much. I just like to try to help. Some of it's through church. Some of it's just just like with schools, and uh, the group I work with in Texas right now, Texas Style Wrestling, they're very involved in the community and helping kids in the school. Some are underprivileged, and some of them are. This, in fact, we just moved into a new venue this last night. That was our first taping in this new venue, which is incredible. It's tied to the school system there, where they have the kids come and they work in these stores. The building is almost like a mall, and they have the businesses in there and have these two arenas. One of them holds about 8,000, one holds about 600, and that's where we taped last night. And we will have students following us around, learning production and learning camera work and learning how to write, for TV, the formats and that kind of, all those things. That it's a learning center, and we're involved in that, which is something that's real exciting. At home, I try to. I've got some. I don't know how to. They're underprivileged kids in one part of town, and we do some things with them that a lot of them don't have parents that they're living with, or maybe living with one, and pretty poor neighborhoods and that kind of thing. And we have a program that we're working with them, and we go to those schools, and it's an incredible experience to see those kids' faces light up, and get all those hugs and things from them. But some of them had never had Christmas presents until we started doing this.
Ah,
They told us. They said, "I've never had a Christmas present before." And we bring them things for every holiday. We do something with them, and it's just doing things like that for me is it means more to me than it does to them, probably. It's just it's heartwarming to see that little bit of time, that they're happy, and feel like they're special and loved, and so those are the kinds of things I try to do. I don't necessarily get involved in any particular organization doing something. That's kind of
Yeah, I mean,
kind of one of those things.
yeah, it seems like that. Working with, being involved with schools, uh, you just never know what somebody's going through and the environment that these people are going through, and it's good to give something to them that they could use and something that they can
Well,
enjoy.
it's a real concern to me that we have gotten to a point to where I think family is kind of taking a back seat, to the kids aren't brought up with two parents a lot of times, and sometimes they're not brought up with parents at all, and then I think there's a lot of things that have kind of gotten out of hand as far as the education system is concerned, and the teaching is not always getting through the basics and that kind of thing. So there's so many things with our youth that really concern me right now, and I think that's something if we can concentrate on in some way and try to help in some way, whether it's teaching or whether it's just making them feel good for a little while, something to kind of change the pattern, and I think that's something that we've got to really strive to do right now in our society.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we should probably look at to improve because I think children are the future. They really are, and we need to have future leaders really make a difference as far as our education system and as far as working in schools and teaching the next generation.
Yeah, well, that all comes from leadership. It's like every other thing, like a wrestling business. How the quality of what's there is usually comes from leadership, and I just don't think that we've had the kind of leadership we need to sustain that. I worry about the future of those kids and my grandkids, and that's something important that I think that we all need to try to think about and contribute to.
Yeah. Why do you feel passionate about helping out in your community? Why do you feel passionate about helping out in your community?
I just think that's what you do if you're a human being and care about society. I mean, we're so divided in so many ways right now, and I think that's a shame. I mean, we can disagree about things. We can have different philosophy about uh, government or religion or anything else, but there's certain basic things that I think all of us should be agreeing on. Just the basic decency of life, and I think we get away from that sometimes because we get so divided with other things, and that's something that really concerns me because like I said, I've got grandkids. Not I want them to have a better place to live. When they grow up, I don't want them to have to see the world destroyed, from idiocy. I really am concerned about that.
Yeah, I just hope I'm with you. I hope that we can change things in the coming years to make a better future, make a better life, so that we'll have a better way of doing things, a new way of doing things.
Well, we better. This place is going to be a mess.
Yeah, that's something I definitely think we can both agree upon. But James, this has been wonderful getting the chance to speak with you. It means a lot to me and my listeners and viewers that are watching this on YouTube. Where can people find more about you on social media?
Well, I'm not I'm not a big social media guy. I do have a Twitter account and all that stuff, but I don't pay a lot of attention to it. I check with guys on Facebook, and that's how I keep up with some people. But I don't. Mostly, just if I post something, it's usually about something I'm involved in doing and promoting it, or once in a while I'll post something personal, but not. I'm not a big poster on social media, but you can find me, and if somebody wants me or is looking to contact me in some way, I'm always checking in on it, and I'm not that hard to catch, so that's pretty easy. Working on, I'm just about finished with a second book right now. I'm trying to get it done so by the summer it's out, and
All right.
I'll be probably promoting that a little bit. But I'm not hard to find. I don't like you're not going to see a lot of me unless you look for me. But I'm not hard to find.
We'll definitely have you back on here to promote your book. I think that's pretty exciting. Looking forward to reading it.
Be happy to. You bet.
All right. Thank you again for coming on, and you're more than welcome to come back.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stanley.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.